Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
Look at me. I am the captain now.
We've got Chris.
This is becoming overwhelming and frustrating.
And I'm Kia. Hi, welcome to the show. I don't remember either of those quotes, as is often the case with your quotes from these books. I guess that I am the captain now was not a direct quote from this Captain Marvel book that we're reading. Is that right, Vince?
No, that's correct.
In the film Captain Phillips.
Captain Phillips, just 10 years old, and I guess a year after this movie.
Wait, is that what we were supposed to read?
Yes.
Is there a Captain Phillips comic?
Yes. Next week we're doing Sully. We're just doing Tom Hanks biopic comics.
That'd be good. I'd be okay with that. Chris, I guess let me know when we get to your quote. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, it's from Earth X. We'll get to
it. Earth X. Yeah, we're all tired of Earth X. So we'll see what happens there. We're on Earth X number 3. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But for right now, we are reading some Captain Marvel by Kelly Sue DeConnick. There is a new Marvels movie coming out, which is it's Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. It's Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, and it's the other Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Photon, leader of Next Wave.
That's her name.
We covered her when she first appeared in WandaVision, which I guess 2.5 years ago now.
Crazy.
But yeah, this is Kelly Sue DeConnick's first arc with the character back in 2012. And it's right when she dropped the Miss Marvel name. It's like in these first issues. Spoiler alert, where she stops being Miss Marvel and becomes Captain Marvel.
The book is called Captain Marvel, but it's still in doubt for the first issue. Will she take that name? But not much tension there, but...
Yeah, and of course, a lot of Captain Marvel series throughout the years here, a constantly relaunched book. But this was, I think, specifically called Earth's Mightiest Hero, Captain Marvel. It was collected in these 6 issues here, called In Pursuit of Flight. A few different artists throughout this as well. We've got Dexter Soy for the first 4 issues doing the majority of it, and then Emma Rios for the last 2. And a few more guest artists mixed in throughout for a lot of flashback sequences and this and that. But what do we need to know going into this? Not really much. There's a newspaper article at the beginning of the first issue that says, she's unmasked now. She's got a new costume. Lizards are loose in Manhattan. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think historically, I think it's really interesting because she'd been Miss Marvel or Ms. Marvel, MS period, for 40 years, 45 years. Carol Danvers since the 70s, right, Chris?
Yeah, but 77. There's only 2 series, Kia. Sorry to correct you right away, but there's a 77 series and there's a 2006 series, and those are the only 2 Ms. Marvel
before this.
This one.
Fair.
The Brian
since
Reed
then,
one.
There's a whole lot more, right?
Yes, the Brian Reed one is the 2006. That is the I think the longest continuous Carol Danvers series probably that there will ever be.
Before a relaunch, yeah. And
yes.
but we with the movies, she was just introduced to the world as Captain Marvel straight up, whereas a lot of other people have been Captain Marvel before that. But the costume redesign here, calling Carol Danvers Captain Marvel that we know as moviegoers, all starts here in 2012. It took and stuck really quickly. So I think that's interesting when stuff happens like that.
Yeah, and her history is almost too long to totally explain because it's it goes on and on and on forever. But the points you need to know are she worked for security in her earliest appearances and was sort of Captain Marvel's girlfriend, gets superpowers. When she first appears as Ms. Marvel, she thinks she is a Kree alien. This is why she thinks she's a Kree alien in the movie. And so she has to remember, oh yeah, I'm a human woman. And so she's able to remember her own life. And then a bunch of other things happen. Probably the most memorable would be Rogue and Mystique taking away all her powers and memories and dumping her in the river in an issue that we've previously covered, Avengers Annual, where then she is alive but has no memory of her own life. And then when she gets it back, she has no emotional connection to her own life. So she goes to space, and it's you don't have to worry about any of this.
Does she marry her own son or something?
Yes, there's an Avengers. She doesn't marry him, but she is taken to Limbo. I think we covered this, didn't we?
No, we didn't. It's on my April Fool's list.
It's on the April Fool's list. She is taken to Limbo by Immortus's son, who impregnates her. Yeah, Kang impregnates her. And then gives birth to himself ages into an adult, and then is like, well, I'm going to marry her. So long, Avengers. She has to go with me now. And Hawkeye, Thor, and Iron Man are like, so long.
That happens like in an issue, right?
Yeah, this was issue 200, famously a terrible issue. We, like I said, I know we talked about Avengers Annual because that's the one that was a response by Chris Claremont that was like, what the hell was this? So none of that.
So none of that. Yeah, we don't need any of that. Good to know.
Or to say this is a nice clean break.
Yeah, the only stuff you need to know is she knew Captain Marvel. She was a pilot. She is connected to the alien Kree.
What? Okay. Cool. Great. Let's move on. So let's. I think
we'll have to cover it one day, Kia, to answer your question.
Oh no!
But she doesn't have like a power upgrade or anything in between her being Ms. Marvel and Captain Marvel. It's purely a name change and a costume change.
Oh, it's so much more than that.
So
it's a mindset thing.
She gets new powers in space, but then later her like Kree physiology or whatever resets, and she goes back to her old powers. Except I think she also like has energy blasts, which she did not have in the 70s series. The 70s series, she was basically just like tough. She had like super strong, super tough skin, could fly, and now she also has energy blasts.
Cool. All right. That's a nice, simple power to add to anybody's moveset. Just energy blast. All right, let's go. So Captain Marvel #1, we got that newspaper article we mentioned. We start right in the middle of a big battle here with the Absorbing Man. He is smashing up the front of the Natural History Museum because he's trying to steal moon rocks. And they ask him why, and he says because they're going to give him moon powers.
Hell yeah. But I will say, this is already like I'm not on board because the cover.
Yes.
I usually don't like Ed McGuinness. I'm going to say it. But the cover is a nice, cartoony, like 4-color thing. Very bright. Mm-hmm. Carol's looking great. It looks like it doesn't. It's not like the Hawkeye art, which is around this time by Matt Fraction. But it is very much. It's very cartoony. It's very clean art, and then we immediately go to like this like distorted figures, digital color. People don't have pupils art.
Yeah, a big Len Yoon, or however you say his name, from Lineal Secret Invasion.
Lineal Francis Yu. But with like worse coloring, I feel like, or just like extra digital coloring that just like immediately is like, I'm not on board with this concept. Like you had such a great cover and like a really good like I always thought that was the tone of this book because I never opened it. I've only seen like the cover. I'm like, okay, well, I don't really like Ed McGuinness, but sure. And then I open up, I'm like, no, I don't like this art at all. This is not the right for what I think a Captain Marvel book should be.
Yeah, I was out on it because it is immediately like everybody is not taking it seriously. Everybody's just goofing around. It's the Brian Michael Bendis era of Mighty Avengers leaking in, where I'm just like, guys, can we like treat the Absorbing Man like he's somewhat of a threat?
No, he's got to be like not Speedball. Whoever's in the Spider-Man video game, that girl with the purple costume that you're always beating up. Her.
Yes.
The new one.
Yeah, or the I don't know if she's in the new one, but she's definitely in the old one. And so Miles Morales always beat up at the beginning of every issue. But Bendis had like the Wrecking Crew would always show up for like 2 pages, or Stilt Man, or those kind of things. Like, I'm gonna fight a classic 70s villain and tell them they're stupid for 40 pages or for 4 pages before the plot begins.
Yes, yeah, and Absorbing Man I think is a level above those characters, as we'll find out in Earth X. But it's I did not like that. I also didn't like, we mentioned the art already. Like, even though she's wearing a new costume that is, we have a new feminist female writer, we're still getting like just gratuitous cheesecake shots of her butt as she's like flying in front of the camera.
It looks like traced over porn of like porn poses. I'm not.
It's I
mean, like, I know we can get like that's easy access to get pictures of women, and I get that for like home reference, but come on, man.
It's like, for this being like the bold new direction of like, oh, we have a female writer now, we're gonna move it away from this, and you're just like, why are we doing this? It's a bad first taste of this issue. We'll get into it. Kia, I hope you love this book.
So I will say that the art didn't bother me so much at first glance. Because I think it worked pretty well for fight sequences. There is something that's very dynamic. No, that's not the right word, because actually everyone does look a little bit stilted and pose-like, But There's something about this style of art where I think that hyper realistic, like you were talking about, Vince, that Lionel Francis Yu. How do you say his name? I thought it was Lionel.
I always did Lionel, but I think
I don't know.
it's we are people who have only read those names and never heard them aloud.
Exactly.
Like Cersei Lannister blew my mind too. So there we go.
How did you think it was pronounced?
I don't know. I know it's Catelyn Stark.
Cersei.
Catelyn Stark was the one that threw me. It's Caitlyn Stark.
Okay.
But whatever. Yeah. Go ahead about what.
I thought like it had a nice kind of. It's not painted, but it did have There's something about how everyone's muscles see through their clothing in a weird way that I'm like, I know it's bad, but I do kind of like the way it looks.
I think it's wrong. Sorry.
It's fair. That's fair. You're right. It is wrong, and I agree with that. But it really shows itself more when you just get to the talkie sequences, and it's just looking at faces and stuff, and it's very like, I don't know about this.
If this was Ghost Rider, if this was Venom, I think I'd be like, okay, that's or even Punisher to a degree. I'd be like, this is a fine art choice for that type of book. I just feel like a lot of like with like a green tint on a character that has like red, white, and blue, like looks ugly.
Damn, her butt is out here. Look at that.
For a new feminist direction of the book, like it's a weird choice. Like somebody didn't contact the artist, or they just picked the wrong artist for the relaunch. Yeah. Again, Ed McGuinness is not necessarily the best choice. He has Cheesecake in a different way.
Oh, I see.
He does all the covers.
He does the cover. Well, yeah, until the Dodsons come in on the last,
which are also very well known.
That's very Cheesecake incarnate.
Yeah.
All right, so let's keep moving on. They managed to take down the Absorbing Man by using a cloak that Iron Man gave them that he can't absorb through, and that's it. And again, I kind of realized that she's not actually Captain Marvel yet. She's Miss Marvel right now. Her and Captain America are. It's hard to. In all my notes, I'm writing Cap throughout here. I'm like, that could be either one of them. But Captain America is giving her. They're just kind of like talking about it, like, hey, why aren't you taking the new name here? She's like, well, I don't feel comfortable with it. The real Captain Marvel is dead, and I don't want to take his name. Steve is like, well, you kind of already did. Like, his name is Marvel, and you've been Miss Marvel forever. She's like, oh, well, it's not Miss. All right. And he says he wanted you to have his legacy. Spider-Man shows up to tell Cap that he has a phone call from President. Is the President Michelle Obama in the Marvel Universe at this time? Is that what's going on?
No, it's just, I guess, a joke that Spider-Man likes Michelle Obama. I don't know.
Okay, I don't know. Spider-Man and Carol Danvers spar for a little while. They joke about vaporizing Spider-Man if he doesn't like the new haircut.
Does he date Carol at some point? Or no?
They do go on a date in, I think, Avenging Spider-Man.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that in the notes. Like, there's Avenging Spider-Man. I did not. There's like, I get, like Spectacular Friendly Neighborhood, Web of. I guess there was an Avenging Spider-Man book for a little while.
Yeah,
completely oblivious to.
Again, this is the Mighty Avengers sort of era after Bendis was finally leaving the Avengers books.
And he's like, hey, you want to have dinner? And Carol says she has dinner plans with a sick friend. And we kind of recap her powers and her origin a little bit as she flies home. She's thinking about one of the early heroes of hers, Helen Cobb, who will come to be very important in this story. But she held 15 different flight speed records before she retired, and was just super important to her in her life. And she's talking about like, she did that without powers, and now I have powers. They wouldn't let me get any records. But it's like a plane. I feel like it's fine. It's not like the plane has powers. I don't know. And she decides she is going to take the name, and they're gonna shine bright like a star or something. No, that's later in the book. And then the next morning, she's making coffee for her sick friend. I don't think we actually got her name in this issue. We get it in a later issue. We also didn't really get her relationship with Carol, like, ever, did we?
Carol always needs an older lady with a short haircut and who's gray hair. I've noticed.
Yeah, it's very important to her.
So this is a real. Well, I say real. They're all fake. This was a pre-existing character from her first series in the 70s. I don't know if she'd been in the comic much since then, but yeah, she worked with Carol at the when she had basically a Ms. Magazine type job, and she worked with her there.
Oh, they did say that. They were like, "Oh, back when I was your boss," and she was like, I was your boss."
It was called Woman Magazine.
Whoa!
So totally different from Ms. Magazine.
What was it about?
It's a mystery.
Ah, okay. I like mysteries.
I don't know if they had Wonder Woman on the cover. Probably not.
Probably not. So this friend is in chemo, but she's still, she's up and around. She's not like stuck in bed sick or anything like that. And then there's an article in the paper about how she's Captain Marvel now. And I don't know how that got out to the press so quickly here. I thought she just decided on the flight over there.
New Captain Marvel, and he's a she.
That's a weird way to say that. How did they find out though? She just decided, did she send out a press release overnight?
Yeah, anonymous sources at the Avengers say.
The Avengers paparazzi is fucking. They're on there.
But also on the front page of the Daily Bugle is some other bad news. Not other bad news, just bad news. That Helen Cobb has died in a fire at the Historic Aviation Club. Oh, no.
It's front page news. Iconic pilot dies in fire at Historic Aviation Club.
It's big. This affects everybody.
And somewhere in Texas.
Yeah, we get a flashback to somewhere in Texas. Oh, that's right. This happened somewhere in Texas as well. It's not even like a local fire or anything. I don't know.
Front
but
page
we get a
news
flashback.
of the Bugle.
Yeah.
Oh, and I do want to note also, the newspaper is reusing a comic panel. It's a knock against it. That's always something. Her fight with the Absorbing Man. I'm like, how did they get that angle? It always bothers me every time.
Oh, they did get that angle.
It should be like an older, I don't know, something. If you're gonna use reference art, use older reference art, not from this issue.
Right.
There's got to be like the Avengers press office is sent out like key art or has like some type of like FTP to download like images of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that in the second Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, how like they did like a tribute video to all the Avengers who died in Avengers Endgame. Spoiler alert, I guess. And they have like all these great photos of like Tony Stark all posed, and like every picture of Vision is like super like blown up with terrible resolution because they clearly just downloaded it from the internet. I like that touch that's what these kids could access for their tribute video.
Yeah. Well, it's a high school production.
It's good.
The Avengers didn't have press art for Vision. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
It's fucking
the Daily Bugle. The Daily Bugle is way better than that. They got right up there in a Absorbing Man's face.
Yeah, they have literally the photo that we saw. How come they don't have the picture of Captain Marvel's butt?
They probably do. Jameson was like, "We can't run this.
We can't. Yeah.
This is inappropriate. This is an all
He's got
ages
some
book."
morals. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, I
guess we get a
Captain Marvel knows this woman who we've never heard of before.
Has the same haircut though as the woman she's talking to.
Yeah, we get a flashback to a few years ago in Texas with a similarly gray-haired woman, and this is Helen Cobb. Carol's brother Stevie Danvers has taken her to visit Helen Cobb because he knows her. And Carol is a little bit shy or socially awkward around her, but asks for a little race the next morning so she can learn some stuff. So Carol, modern day, goes to her funeral, has a nice little moment afterwards where she's like flying up in the sky, talking about how she's going to like find her purpose and shine bright like a star, all that kind of stuff. All right. So end of the first issue. Any initial? We've talked a lot about our initial thoughts. I think of this.
Yeah, I think the art's wrong through the first issue. I don't like the dramatic tension of whether or not she's going to become Captain Marvel. I feel like that's where you end the last run. Like you force the other writer to be like, call her Captain Marvel at the end of this, like that. And then I don't like that she's like talking about Helen Cobb, and then she's talking to her friend Tracy, who looks the same as Helen Cobb, but they don't tell her name. They don't tell us her name is Tracy for like 2 pages. And then we immediately cut to another.
Did they say her name is Tracy?
Yes.
All right.
It's like the bottom right of the page.
If you say so.
Because I had to and then Helen, it goes right back to Helen, who looks the exact same. I'm like, we got to do a little better on the art here.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we need to have like a 4-part introduction of the costume and the name change, but yeah, the idea that Captain America's like, come on, change your name. And she's like, okay, fine. Like, that's not very interesting or dramatic. Like, it's just out of nowhere. It's fine, I guess, but yeah, it's not really hooking me in. We'll get to it as we go, but I was reading these in physical issues, and I remember this issue, I was like, this probably should have been like a double-sized issue.
Yeah,
nothing happens.
To a little more of the story here.
I actually do like the letter pages in here, though, because the letter pages are like, man, y'all love the previews of this. Y'all sent us so much fan art of the new Captain Marvel costume. Because apparently the fandom was just like, yeah, this fucking rules. This is a great costume. And the costume is designed by Jamie McKelvey, who I guess did like Phonogram and what was it? The Wicked and the Divine, and a few other things like some Young Avengers a little later on. But so it's not even Ed McGuinness. But like, yeah, people were like on board with this costume like immediately. So I think that provided a lot of momentum for this book. Even if the book isn't that great, people were like, yeah, this is a good new direction for Carol.
Yeah,
and it does have good elements.
Yeah, I think the costume's a lot better. I mean, for one thing, is like people can actually wear it, to comic conventions and things like that, and not look
you can't
like
wear a swimsuit and have
not just wearing like a swimsuit and a sash and boots. Which the funny thing, which I meant to mention to Vince, is her original series in the 70s. Like, that was not her original costume. She just dressed like Captain Marvel, but in like shorts, basically, until. Like, I think it's like issue 18 or 19, somewhere around there. And the book only lasted, I think, 23 issues. So it's towards the end. Dave Cockrum takes over as the regular penciler. Chris Claremont was already the writer. And yeah, they give her, I guess, what looks like a alternate Phoenix costume, because she's got the sash. She's got, it's very much like, oh yeah, Jean Grey like could have worn a costume that looks exactly like this.
Because Cockrum did the Phoenix costume also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was like a recolored Phoenix costume.
Yeah, that was green and gold. But yeah, the sash especially, you're like, like they have the exact, like, I don't know what other costumes have sashes like this, but these two definitely do.
All right, well, let's move on to Captain Marvel #2 here. We start with Carol Danvers and Tracy Burke. We learn her last name here. They go to Texas to Helen's private hangar. Tracy Burke, by the way, is awaiting surgery for cancer. I don't know why she's going to Texas for this. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with her, but apparently she's just that close of a friend, which really had me wondering, like, wait, what is the relationship?
Sometimes you gotta take a gal pal with you if you're especially going to Texas,
Sure.
Single lady on her own in Texas in these dive bars,
And again, Captain Marvel has the ability to fly to Texas in like a couple of hours.
Yeah. So. Why did? Okay. Well.
But she's like, no, I have to book a flight for me and my friend.
Yep.
I would think the Avengers hooked her up at least. Like,
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, she's got like points or something where she's not paying full price.
Yeah. And I guess what has happened is that Helen has left Carol this plane in her will. And the story is that she achieved like her altitude record in this plane, but it never got logged because she stole it. No, she didn't steal it. She was returning it to some Peruvian general who was then like mad at her and attacked her and like
probably sexist one that was probably
something like that. Something like
shit like that.
And then she like escaped from there, and some wealthy admirer of hers bought it and gave it to her. Okay, sure. So this plane was in Helen's possession. It was important to her, and she left it to Carol. Then for some reason, Carol decides, hey, I'm going to try and beat Helen's height record with this shitty old plane that has just been left to me.
I don't like, I'm like, you've got to touch this plane up. Like, I know that, like, I'm told that, like, I know my car runs fine, but if it just didn't run for 30 years and then you said, like, yeah, I think I could beat his record in this Subaru, like, right. you're not going, it's like, it may run. It's not going to run in peak condition to be able to defeat anybody's records. I'll tell you that.
And it doesn't have anything to do with your abilities, Carol. Like, it's just a plane. It's just what can the plane handle?
Yeah, but she wants to show she's a great pilot, I guess.
Okay, all right.
I don't understand pilot culture. This may make total sense to pilots.
You're right. Pilots out there, let us know. Leave a comment. What's our website? All my friends are right here. That's
allmyfriendsareghthere.com or on the YouTube.
Whoa,
leave us a comment
there,
here,
pilots.
YouTube, yeah, and you can go on there. There's comments there. People comment there. They say they
So
love the
you-
show. Don't send negative comments because that hurts my feelings. But
Do you
Send
think
send away?
Yeah, do you think the U.S. Air Force read this issue and just started like wringing their hands together, like, oh yeah, when this becomes a movie, we're gonna have so many Air Force hats.
This is just like what we do.
Which they did when
they did.
First movie came out.
Yes.
And I feel like she went to like a dive bar in Texas also in that movie. I don't know if she has a history of dive bars in Texas or not.
Yeah,
maybe.
We'll get to it. There's some Texas misrepresentation. It's more later. But they appear to think that Texas is a vast desert in Houston, Texas, which I hate to tell you, it is not a desert at all.
You gotta go the other way. You gotta go the other way for that vast desert.
Yeah, they should have, I guess, taken some references from the Scarlet Spider series that I think had just been canceled.
Oh yeah, that's when Carnage fucked up the Galleria and then Space Center Houston 40 minutes away.
Yes, just gets in traffic, drives across town to Space Center.
There's not tall buildings. I don't know how he did it.
Stick to New York, Marvel. You know better there.
Like, I live in Houston, listeners, and like for me to get to NASA, I'd be like, maybe on like a Saturday when the traffic's not too bad.
That would be a fun one for all April Fool's Day. Scarlet Spider, all the misrepresentations of Houston. But yeah, either way,
all right.
We are lost the plot, and let's find
we
this
haven't.
plot
So
again.
Carol, I know the plot. Carol is doing this flight height record thing, and she goes too high. She starts icing over. She's losing control. And then there's like a white flash of light, and she lands somewhere unknown. The white flash of light is not white enough and flashy enough, in my opinion.
So she puts on an air mask from the plane, not like from her own fucking Captain Marvel mask that she can use to fly in space.
Yeah, we saw in issue 1 she flew in space. So,
so what's the problem here? Just jump out of the plane.
Why do you need to put on the breathing mask?
She is in her like internal narration, like, no, I'm not going to crash this plane. Like she feels like it's cheating to use her power somehow. So that includes using her like flight suit air supply or whatever it is that she has.
She's got to do it legit.
Yeah.
There's going to be a major asterisk. Either way, you're a superhero. You can handle these G-forces. Shut the fuck up. Like,
yeah. So she wakes up and she has landed somewhere unknown. She can't see the plane anywhere. There's there's nothing. And the narration bubble also tells us location unknown. So she's not in Texas anymore here. And a bunch of Japanese soldiers show up pointing guns at her, and they're yelling at her in Japanese. And I don't like that this Japanese is all just like phonetically written out. It makes sense for what she'd be hearing, but just give us some Japanese characters, please. I think that'd be better.
Yeah, the translated. I mean, we know how this works. Like,
yeah,
you just have a little editor's note translated from the Japanese. Like,
or don't give it to us at all. Well, either way.
Yeah, just be like, no, she can't understand it, so neither can you.
Yeah.
They take her to some World War II camp, and she's confused. And then someone throws a grenade, and a bit of a scuffle breaks out there. And these 5 female soldiers show up and tell her to get her head down. And it is the women of the Air Service Pilots Banshee Squad, class of 1943, led by Jerry Quimby. And Carol's like, uh-oh, that's not okay.
And Chris, I'm going to assume we don't know any of these people, like in previous Marvel history.
I don't believe so. Let me confirm
it's
that.
It's possible, who knows?
I guess like invaders are usually on the European front, not the Eastern front or Western Pacific front, I guess. But yeah, I was wondering about that.
This is their first appearance.
Okay, cool.
And we heard them. So they say, hey, you're a captain, right? We heard those people call you captain back there, which also had me very confused because did the Japanese folks like say captain at any point? Do they speak Japanese? Who called her? I don't
know, and I don't know enough about military things to know if that star means captain in military parlance. I don't think it does.
I see. Probably not. But they are talking, and then some weird it looks like a spaceship, but I guess it's just some sort of military ship with some alien technology. And
She
it's
recognizes a little bit of his Kree, at least maybe in the next issue.
Yeah. She is like, oh, I recognize that, and does specifically call it the Kree stuff in the next issue. And it looks like a big cone that's just kind of flying down, and it straight up blasts through one of these girls from the Banshee squad with a real thick laser that straight up destroys her midsection. Like, no question, she is dead. And then Captain Marvel springs into action, and there's like, hey, what's your name? Captain something? Captain what? And she's like, Captain Marvel. All right, cool.
And then she's like, and then she pulls a DuckTales and says, let's rewrite some history.
Yeah, that is a DuckTales. You're right. And then, all right, straight into Captain Marvel 3. She's like, these are. Oh, go ahead.
I will say this issue again. I was reading these in singles. This issue, I was like, what the hell is this? I did not like this book at all.
I will say my first impression of like, oh, it's a time travel story is like, relaunch. I kind of want to see how Captain Marvel figures into this new world with her new personality and everything. And it was a little strange for it to be a time travel story.
Yeah. And especially a drawn out one that doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't go very far, but let's we'll get to that.
because like I was also thinking like maybe I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe it's like Captain America where they want to have like the World War II flashbacks like Brubaker's Captain America. Like, but no, this isn't her history. What is this?
Yeah, this is just like, oh, there's other female pilots through the years. What if Captain Marvel met some of them?
I will say it does feel slightly important for giving her a little bit of motivation for who she wants to be.
Right.
I get that,
like women have had a hard time historically in the military of getting recognition for their service. And it kind of gets there near the back half. I feel like I don't like issue 1. This issue, I'm more like, okay, we're fighting big monsters, all right, or big robots and stuff. I like time travel, okay. I don't really know why you do this for a relaunch in the first arc, but I think that's why it's weird. But
well, let's get through it. We'll have more final thoughts at the end here. So Captain Marvel number 3, the ships are confirmed Kree tech, I guess, by Captain Marvel here. They down one, and it's got a Japanese pilot inside. And one of the girls is so pissed at him for killing Rivka, they say, one of the others. And they punch him. Captain Marvel's like, whoa, hold on. And Captain Marvel talks to him and sends this guy away, saying, "Hey, go gather your friends and come back at full strength, so you'll know you've been beat when we hand your asses to you." Which seems like a strange strategy, but okay. You don't really know
strategy. Let's see how full. They had a fucking huge. But she's also like, if she's like the Captain Marvel of the movies, like I don't know anything that can beat her. Quite frankly, she can just fly through any bad guy's spaceship. It's more like she's a Deus Ex Machina for things, but.
So
like the One Piece guy.
Yeah.
Just like the One Piece guy.
Exactly like the One Piece guy. They should switch places. Put that One Piece guy.
Oh, that would have been
Avengers.
That would have been a better thing if she had time traveled into One Piece and they'd switch places. And every time they use their powers, they switch between the two books.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Imagine if Disney bought Shonen Jump.
And she could still call herself Captain Marvel. She'd just be a pirate captain.
Yes. This is fucking gold. You're telling me that a One Piece Captain Marvel MCU crossover like that wouldn't make money? That's gold.
You know what? But if they're gonna do that, just put Wolverine in it. That'll make more money.
Well, no, they would have they would have the Thing as Bluebeard because there's a Silver Age Fantastic Four where he was.
Are we gonna recast One Piece as Marvel characters?
Oh shit! I mean that's like Deadpool illustrated, but that's okay.
Right. Yeah. So let's move on here. We're getting
we have to stop giving out these free gold
ideas. Yeah. So Captain Marvel sends this guy away. Oh, we already did that. The girls ask, "Okay, are you an alien?" And she gives everyone her origin story.
She's like, "Kind of, yes."
Kind of, yeah. And she said, "We are fighting alien tech, and like, hey, that Japanese boy, not your enemy." Well, who is our enemy? Like, I don't really know yet. At some point throughout all this, one of the girls also introduces herself. She's like been drawing like cartoons, comics, and she's like, "Yeah, Rivka, who died, was teaching us all cartooning." Okay, and she says her name is Bijou Kawasaki because one of her parents was they were different races of parents, and she's like, "That's how I ended up with such a weird name."
French or New Orleans, I think.
Yeah. So the next morning, the ships come back. One of the ships powers up into a big old spider bot. She's like, all right, time for a fair fight. And we get an interlude to the NASA headquarters in 1961. Whoa, a different time jump here. There's a guy at NASA who is telling Helen Cobb and some other woman that they can't join the space program because everyone has to have experience in the jet program first. And they're like, but women aren't allowed in the jet program.
Exactly.
Like, well,
the system is broken by design.
And he's like, well, I'm not going to put y'all in the jet program. So after everyone else leaves, Helen Cobb sticks around to say, hey, here's this artifact I got from this Peruvian guy delivered this plane for. If you want the other one, then you got to let us into the program.
Is that Howard Stark? They call somebody Howard.
Oh, they do call him
though,
Howard.
Is it?
I don't think it is. I feel like they would have mentioned it if it's Howard Stark.
I heard them say the name Howard at one point, but I'm not sure if it was.
They
did.
Definitely heard but Howard. I don't. I know it was Howard, but I don't think it was Howard Stark.
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe it's Howard the Duck. No, he wasn't.
Maybe.
So then we get another little interlude here. It's a Daily Bugle Sunday Color supplement starring Captain Marvelous, written by Diddle and Kawasaki. And then I'm like, wait a minute, it wasn't Kawasaki, that girl who's learning to cartoon? And I'm like, okay. And then at the end of this little one-page thing, which I didn't write anything about, there's a note that says, this strip was found among the papers of Dolores Daisy Diddle by her grandchildren after her passing just last year. We reproduce it here for your reading pleasure only, making no claims as to its origin. Okay, thanks, Daily Bugle. I wish you'd put that note at the beginning. I feel like giving it context before the reader reads it is important. Okay. And that's the end of that issue. I called it an interlude, but that was the end. Okay. Wait, why do they call it an interlude if that's how it ended? They should have called it an epilogue, right?
Well, it's an interlude for the arc.
For the arc. Okay.
I guess, especially if you're reading it in the trade.
What if you're reading it in the issue?
Then Chris is starting to quit by this point.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie, those are more interesting than what's going on in the main book.
Yeah,
I'm like we're developing a slight supporting cast.
The interlude
not the Daisy Diddler, but
that's a weird name.
but the Helen Cobb one, I'm like, okay, there's some intrigue here. That's the most intrigue I've got for this book. I'm actually like interested in that kind of shit. But I think it's more spy stuff and more like actually active, like women are treated shittily by the American government and military system. So I'm interested in that. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, the book has introduced so many like random female characters that I've never seen before, including, Tracy, what's her name, who I had seen before, but I forgot. And you're just like, okay, which one is this? Who's this? Because they don't do a good. So we already mentioned that Tracy looks like Helen later in life, but yeah, Helen looks like the leader of the 40s, the Banshees. Mm-hmm. So if you're just like, okay, like, is she related to her somehow? No, this is just in the 60s. There's still women are not being treated well. And I guess we have to jump to that.
Mm-hmm. I will say this book, and it's not this book's fault, but it reminds me of a much better book that came out a couple years later from DC called DC Bombshells, which put all of the DC characters like in the 40s. So like Batwoman was like in like kind of, she was a crime fighter, but also like in a league of their own situation. But like Wonder Woman was like in a World War II fighting outfit like this, and it was like with all women, and it was like really cool. And I was like, I should just read Bombshells. The whole time I'm reading this issue, I'm like, I should just read Bombshells. That was a really good book.
Right. And you had the knowledge that like it wouldn't just be one issue and then you're done with it forever.
Right. Bombshells is a good book.
Was also slightly confused about what program the Banshees, I guess the Jet program specifically, is what the 1961 women were allowed to do, which was it was a little weird to me to present that while also presenting these 1943 women who are like being very successful and allowed to do more than most other people are, right? Like they had their group where they're heading down to Hawaii. And that's how they ended up down here. I don't know if that's too big of a deal, but it was a little bit of a, I don't know, what's going on. But I guess jet program makes sense versus just a plane program. Yeah. What program did these the Banshees say they were in?
They were they were like a collection of like a crop duster's daughter and like other people who had like flight experience, and they just like needed people. So that's it. I think thematically we're supposed to connect them, but the book doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's I'm sorry to be so down on this book, but I was just like, are you gonna explain this?
So I will say one of the things I really liked the most about this book, I think, was a little bit more apparent to me in this issue, because I generally don't take many notes throughout fight sequences, right? There's just not a ton to say about them. And I do generally just like the writing and pacing throughout the fight sequences quite a bit. There's just something about the way they're written. Even the kind of jokey nature of the first Absorbing Man one, I thought it flowed pretty well. I don't know. I like that element quite a bit, enough to make a note about it.
And I think Dexter Soy actually does draw really good, like, ships and stuff. Like, the ships stuff is cool.
And he's badass.
Yeah. And he's gotten rid of, like, the green tint from the first issue, which I think was a bad call. Like, it's looking better, and the ships do look awesome.
Yeah. And it's also looking less just like he is tracing porn stuff. Yeah. It's looking like we're actually just seeing Carol like doing stuff instead of her just like butt forward.
Yeah.
And then so we get afterwards a little bit more of this backstory where they talk about their history of being a ragtag group. They thought they were flying to Hawaii, and they saw a similar white light. And they landed somewhere here, and like Carol uses the stars to figure out that they're in Peru, and they are just kind of talking and joking about everything. And something here, there's a little bit of a logical leap where Carol's like, I know, I need to go look in this wreckage, and this shrapnel, which is, I didn't know where that came from, really. I thought they would have been more amazed to find their shrapnel. Of their own ships. And anyways, they're trying to figure out what the Japanese are even doing here, and they're like, let's go look at this shrapnel. And there's a glowing artifact in there, and Carol, this makes Carol realize a lot of things, where she's like, oh, I've got the same ship as the leader of the Banshees here does, because they see it flying overhead, and she's like, I think I'm flying that plane up there. It's a lot of logical leaps in a very tight space here. Can y'all explain it better than I did?
Well, yeah. The only other thing, too, is that we see in one of these issues, there's like a logo or like a symbol, and Carol recognizes it from the thing that gave her her powers. I don't know if she explains that in this issue or next issue. So you're like, what?
Yeah, somehow Carol realizes something.
Somehow this is connected to her getting her powers, but I still don't really know how.
Yeah. So back in 1961, Helen Cobb is at this local Texas bar of hers, and she's telling her friends that she has convinced that Howard guy to let them fly jets. And there's a nice scene telling them all this over poker. I really like this scene. This is one of my favorite scenes in the book, where it is just them kind of talking over poker. And yeah, it seems really nice to me. Then one of my least favorite scenes in the book right after, where Helen goes to her room and she's like, oh, they didn't tell me I would be having a bunkmate, but they said more pilots would be arriving. Nice to meet you. And she like tells her whole life story while she's getting changed behind the screen to a stranger who hasn't said a word yet. And then we're like, who is this stranger? And we reveal that it's Carol Danvers in full Captain Marvel costume.
Wearing her costume.
Yep.
Silly.
It was a little weird, but okay. So Carol Danvers is in 1961 now.
And I'm like, that's cool. I'm also like, what happened to the girls that we just spent a lot of time with?
We never see them again.
Forget them.
So into issue 5 here, Carol Danvers, I guess, is now also in the jet program here, and her and Helen are flying in the sky for jet experience, except Helen is treating it like a race. And Helen is real feisty here. She's pretending like she's lost control, and Carol's like, oh, should I transform to Captain Marvel and save her? Should I fly? And she's like, oh, maybe if I fly over there, I'd get closer. It was all just a trick. Helen's
That's
real
fucking mean, because Like the Maydays, does she think that like Carol's gonna? What if Carol wrecked that fucking jet? Like she like actually did like the escape hatch to like go and fly and get Helen, and
Yeah,
now
I
that
agree.
plane is ruined.
She's a loose cannon.
She
She needs to play some volleyball and work it out.
I do like, I love it. I like though that Helen isn't this like mythologically nice like figure that like Carol mythologized her as. She's like a fucking dick. And I always like that when that character's kind of like, you have the image of them and the adoration, and then you meet the real character. I always like that plot trope.
Yeah, I do like that.
Especially seeing her, like you just learn more and more about her as a character as you go through. Which again it feels like Helen had the most character development in this book here, and she's dead.
As you say, she does not. She's dead in issue 1. She's dead in issue 6.
Yep.
And we've got new artists, by the way. I know we said Emma Rios.
We did. Yes, thank you. And I do. I did have stuff to say about her, but it comes out a little bit more as we go through the book. But I generally also liked it, but also had a hard time telling Carol and Helen apart sometimes.
Yes. But yeah, especially every woman that's not, because Carol is so tall. I'm like, that's Carol, the tallest woman in every scene.
But
that's
in
so
the scenes where they're just going,
I draw all my figures the same height. That's interesting. Other
are
good.
You didn't learn how to draw comics the Marvel way with John Buscema and Stan Lee, because they tell you heroes should always be taller.
Really?
Ooh,
that is true. Yeah. Most of our presidents are very tall.
All right, so
like a short superhero is like 6'1", like Spider-Man is only 6'1". All the other guys are like 6'4", giants.
What about Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham?
He's probably hero.
He's probably only like 3'6" because he's a cartoon.
But does he tower above everybody else in his universe?
Who is the shortest hero?
Wolverine is pretty
short.
I'd
say Puck from Alpha Flight.
Okay.
Because he I think is under 5 feet tall as a guy. There's probably some female characters that are just as short, but I feel like Puck is the smallest guy.
What about Slimer? Does he count as a hero?
He's in a different universe, so I don't think he counts.
Does Slimer's height count like the amount he floats over the ground?
No.
Anyway, so yeah,
it's hard no.
We have.
All right, so they're flying. So yeah, Captain Marvel, Carol, and Helen go back to that local bar. And Carol is excited to see it. She's been there in the future. The owner is kind of flirting with Helen a little bit. Helen's like, when you're going to sell me this bar? And this owner's like, when are you going to let me make an honest woman out of you? And Carol's like, oh, is this, what's his name, Lou? Hey, is this Lou? Oh, I've heard about this guy. I didn't know y'all were so, close like this. And I'm like, Carol, what are you talking about? Are you trying to maintain your cover or what? Are you trying to blow it?
You met this woman yesterday.
Yeah. And Helen is like, all right, let's go over there and talk for a second. And she's like, you showed up out of nowhere. You're a better pilot. You're like a great pilot, but I've never heard of you. Who the hell are you? And Carol is like, hey, I'm just a great pilot, just like you. And then Helen draws a picture of this artifact and says, do you know what this is? And Carol's like, where'd you see that? And Helen's like, will you tell me what it is first? And Carol's like, what makes you think I know? And Helen, and it's just a little bit of a back and forth, and and Carol says, it's okay, it's part of the machine that made me who I am. And they're like, what? No, what? And there's a lot of information kind of being exchanged silently here, and also a lot of information not being exchanged. And then one of the girls in the jet program is on the phone in the corner, and she breaks her glass and takes everyone's attention. Actually, hold on. First, we hear a smash, and then on the next page, we see a panel of the thing falling to the glass and breaking. And I don't know if there was a separate smash. Maybe it was hanging up the phone was the first smash. That's possible. I really had a hard time analyzing the order of events here because you can't hear something before it breaks. That's all. That's all I got to say. So this girl is upset because they've canceled the jet program. They're kicking the girls out for some reason. We don't learn why, but Helen is pissed at this. She's kicking a car. Her and Carol are going to go sneak into NASA and take back that artifact that she gave her as part of the deal. Okay. Yeah. Did I miss anything? Again, a lot happened all at once there.
No, that's basically what I don't know why it happened, but that's what happened.
But that happened. So they go to NASA. They're both talking, and neither of them are giving each other too much info still, and they joke that they're such a great team for that reason. Helen, there's like the first guard they see, and they're like, "Hey, y'all, we're closed," and Helen punches him out with brass knuckles.
That's fucking extreme.
It's very extreme. Why did she have brass knuckles?
Why'd you have like that's like possibly like surgery for the guy, like like possibly missing teeth. Also, I don't know if you're knocked out. Does that like also mean like a concussion probably came with it? Like if you have a head injury, like it's not good to be knocked out. I assume.
No, because the other guy is like he comes out. There's another guard, and he's like, "Hey, who? Stop!" And then he kind of stops to check on his friend, because he's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah." She kind of just packs a punch, but no concussion. I think he seems fine.
Yeah, as someone who's been sucker punched and given a concussion, I would say he just has probably maybe a broken jaw or something like that, but probably not a concussion.
And okay, all right, it's still not good, right? That's still
No,
not like he's gonna be
good.
back and fine tomorrow. He just happens to not be an obstacle today.
Yeah, he's got a family photo tomorrow. His face is gonna be beat red. He's gonna look terrible.
Okay.
So then Helen leads them to the experiments room, which is basically just like a big supply closet with a microscope in there.
So I don't want to pick on this artist, especially I don't know this artist's work very well, but the like photo reference, like NASA is just like an office building they break into, and then this, I was like, what are you referencing? Like, what do you think this is?
You've also gone on the tour of
silly.
Space Center Houston. It's supremely underwhelming because it's office buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not just one.
Yeah.
They have like a whole compound of office buildings.
Yeah, because nothing's taller than like 3 or 4 stories, I think, across the board.
Yeah, so I was just like, why is there just one? This was very weird.
I'm more confused that whoever was doing the experiment on this artifact was just like, clocking out. It's time to head home. Just leave this thing under the microscope. We're done here.
Yep, that's right.
And Helen sees it immediately and grabs it. This thing, what does she say? I think it missed me when she picks it up. What is she talking about there? Do you know? Do you know what I'm talking about? I had a real hard time trying to figure out what this line meant. Every once in a while, something in this book, I was like, what's going on here?
I mean, I guess we'll get to it in the next issue. I don't really understand what happened.
So she grabs this
she was like, "There's gonna be an army here. I'm looking at something in a microscope. Gotcha. Thing on fire. I think it missed me."
Like the fire missed her?
No, the thing, the artifact from the magnetron.
Oh, the artifact missed her.
Yeah.
Like literally, I was thinking of it in terms of like, missed me. Like a bullet misses you.
No, yeah, she's like, it's becoming precious to her.
I see.
Weird artifact.
I mean, well, and there is something going on with
like,
it.
It
was sad that it was
so
apart
much.
from me for so long.
I missed you so much, not like a bullet missed me.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's what they're trying to communicate there, based on what happens in the next issue.
Well, I wonder if it's also related to the fact that this thing starts to kind of be on fire, and nobody references that at all. Where like she's holding up this artifact in her fist over her head, and it looks like it's on fire, and I don't know if that's what it is, if it's some strange aura going over it, but for the next few pages, it's just on fire around her. And they get out of there. More guards are there. They're kind of outnumbered, and Carol's like, all right, fuck it. We got to get out of here. She turns into Captain Marvel. They fly out of there, and they land, and Helen's like, okay, I'm going to ask again, who the hell are you? And Carol reveals that she's from the future. They see Helen's plane flying over it. And she's like, that's my plane. And Carol was like, I think I'm the one flying it up there. And
I like
Carol,
this. I have now I'm on board. I'm like, okay, we see this plane fly. It's an omen kind of thing. We're going to have a time travel switch. I like that. I'm actually like on board with that concept. I like it.
All right. And then Carol says, okay, so there's some time travel stuff, and I need that artifact. Give it to me. And she kind of tries to take it and there's a flash of white light, and they land somewhere totally different now. And Carol's like, "Oh my God, I know where we are." She's like, "That's an alien named Jan Rog." He's standing over Carol, and they're next to the machine that gave Carol her powers. What? They've showed up at Carol's origin. Oh my goodness. How did that happen? Captain Marvel number 6, straight into it here. We're in the modern day. We're at Mount Sinai Hospital. Tracy Burke's room. She's waiting for surgery. Hold on now, though. I thought she was in Texas.
She flew back.
She flew back. When did she kind of give up on Carol?
She hasn't given up. She's like, she'll be here.
But when did she give up on waiting for her in Texas and say, "Well, I guess I'm gonna go back to New York City now"? I guess whenever the flight was scheduled for.
Yeah, maybe it was just Friday to Sunday thing where it's like, well, I have to fly back. I assume Carol will get back in touch with me.
But we never clarified if she flew commercial or if she flew.
In like a Quinjet or something.
Yeah, and then Jarvis is there and he's like, I mean, this shit happens, man. Just let's go back home and we'll put a beacon out. We'll see if we can find her.
Does she know Carol is Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. She's unmasked. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
She's
that makes it
also using her powers to fix her coffee maker.
You're right. That is a little bit more reasonable. That she's like, okay, I know she's a superhero. Something's going on, and I'll just let her handle it.
This is gotta be a weird life, though. I don't know. I don't know if she's coming back. I don't know where the fuck she is. But and Jarvis, I'm sure Jarvis just rolled up and he's like, it happens. All right, cool.
But why is she that important to Tracy? That's also a little bit. Okay, so
I guess she's got surgery scheduled, so that's why it's important that she was going to see her.
But okay, let's continue here. So Jessica Drew is visiting because Carol is still off the grid. Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman.
Probably also lives in Avengers Mansion at this time.
Yeah, I guess so.
Avengers Tower.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, I agreed if Carol ever went off the grid, I agreed to feed her cat and to visit you. I guess she's that important. Tracy is kind of rude to Jessica. Doesn't seem to like her. It seems pretty rude to everybody.
Almost like she's Helen.
Almost. It's very it's almost the same type of character.
I don't know if you've heard, Vince, but well-behaved women seldom make history.
I've heard that. What do they make?
History.
So Jessica's like, okay, can I get you anything? And Tracy's like, nope, I have everything I need. And the nurses know to let me know when Carol gets here. And she's like, all right. And then afterwards, Tracy is clutching the sheets, being like, she'll be here. She has to be here.
Yeah. This character, I don't even know if she appeared in the 50 issues of the previous Ms. Marvel series.
It seems like a lot that it feels like your surgery is riding on Carol showing up, and I don't know.
Yeah. It's like this was a co-worker you had a decade ago.
Yeah. All right, so back to the scene with Jan Rog. Carol continues kind of explaining everything to Helen here. The machine that they're standing in front of is a wishing machine buried here by the Kree because it was too dangerous, and it's what gave her powers. Then they watch Jan Rog summon the Mandroid. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Who is she? X-51, the Machine Man over here, giving all this exposition?
A lot of exposition. And then Marvel shows up, and Carol gets a little bit sad. And Helen is like, all right, so this is what's going to happen, I guess. This is why we're here, right? You're going to stop all this from happening so you never get powers and you can live a normal life. And Carol's like, no, that's not what's going on. I don't even know if there is a why we're here. But she does realize that this is all only happening because Helen gave her that plane that, sent her back in time and whatever. And Carol decides that she will fly in, but just to help Marvel, who is kind of struggling a little bit. Which, was he struggling? It seems like everything worked out the first time, unless Carol helped the first time without realizing it. Oh my goodness. But then, she kind of jumps out. She's like, oh, everything's exploding. I got to go save Helen. And the explosion happens and Helen appears to have powers now. She got them from the explosion from the wish instead of Carol. But no, Carol still has her powers too, so I'm not sure. But Helen has powers too now. And Carol's like, wait a minute. Did you orchestrate all this to take my place? And Helen's like, what? I don't even know what's going on, but maybe I did do you a favor if, you shouldn't have these powers to begin with or something. And Carol punches her. And I don't even know how we got to this point out of nowhere. But I guess Helen is evil and wants to have these powers. Yeah. That's
for like a page.
For like a page. They see then this plane flying overhead again. And Carol's like, wait a minute, that plane is the time machine. And they like punch, fly, fight their way up there, racing to the plane to get to it first. I did like this very trippy art when they reach it, where Carol's like merging into other versions of herself. And this plane is, kind of visible throughout all points of time or something like that. And then Helen catches up to the plane and she kind of admits defeat and says, do us proud, Carol. Okay. All right. And then Carol poofs back into the timeline. And, someone on the other end of the radio was like, hey, you're back. And the first thing Carol does is check her altitude so she can see if she broke the record. And she did not. And she's like, all right, you win, Helen. And that's the end of the adventure.
She goes and checks on her friend with cancer.
Yeah, there's an ending scene here with which is kind of overlaid with Helen's will in pieces throughout all this, saying Carol will understand when she flies the plane and lots of stuff about passing the torch. So, like, was Helen time traveling this whole time? Is that what was going on?
Helen remembered it from before, and that's why she made sure that Carol ends up with the plane.
Yeah, it seems like a closed time loop.
I see. And then Carol goes to her friend Tracy before surgery, who has just had her meds, so she's extra cranky. And Carol's like, "Hey, I'll let you punch me if you go through with the surgery and you come out alive." And she's like, "Let's go." And that's the end of the first arc of Captain Marvel.
So before we get to those final thoughts, Chris, you had mentioned, does Tracy appear in the previous run of Ms. Marvel?
Oh.
Are you asking me or
you guessed? I'll tell you. No, she did not.
I was gonna say I don't think so.
The last appearance in a Ms. Marvel comic was in '78. She did appear in 2 issues in 1998. Kurt Busiek run of Iron Man.
I was gonna say either Avengers or Iron Man when he was writing both.
And she appeared in a book that we read, Marvel's Eye of the Camera, where Phil from Marvel's not the Marvel's movie that's coming out in like a week, but a different Marvel's. He is like Phil Spector. No, that's not right. Neither of those names are right. No. But he got a call from the Bugle. He got fired from the Bugle and then called up Woman Magazine to see if they had any open work. He talked to Tracy. So Tracy, we've seen Tracy before.
Wow.
She made quite the impression, but no, she has not been seen in modern continuity comics in 15 years prior to this run. Yeah. But she's the most important thing to Carol.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't worry, she'll be dead by the end of this arc.
Well, actually, she dies in the next volume of Captain Marvel, issue 17 or 15. Yep. I looked it up.
Philip
coming soon.
Philip Sheldon is his name.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah,
I looked it up. So final thoughts. It was a story, it was it did tell a full kind of story. It feels like it did give Captain Marvel a little bit of motivation, but boy, just weird choices throughout all this that I don't understand.
I don't like it. I think it picks up on the back half where I'm a little more interested in the story. I think it's a weird relaunch thing. I always think why did this catch on? And other things, this is the Captain Marvel Carol Danvers relaunch that caught on for the movie. But I think it's like Spider-Gwen, where I think our feelings were the book's kind of okay. The writers having a hard time with sequential art writing. I think Chris's specific quote when we read Spider-Gwen was sometimes this is hard, and this book shows it. But it's got great visuals. Not the art necessarily is right for it, but the visuals and the costume is great, just like Spider-Gwen. And then in the hands of another 2 or 3 passes, I think you can come up with something really cool out from this. And I think you're right. The Carol costume is great. It's great for cons. It's pretty easy. It's immediately a good look, new striking design that makes you think like, oh, I want to know more about this character because I do like the covers. But the actual story itself, a little meh. I think the first few issues have a hard time with like the right amount of dialogue. Like sometimes it's too minimalist, in like its descriptions, which leads to some confusion with the reader for knowing like the rhythms of the book. But by the back half of issue 2, issue 3, I was like on board with the rhythms of the book.
Yeah, Chris mentioned some of the Bendis dialogue with the jokey tones and stuff, and it wasn't like that was super present throughout. I will say overall the dialogue and just the general pacing of the book were pretty good. And maybe not pacing of the book, but pacing of the dialogue, and I like Emil Rios's art a lot. The last couple issues did pick up for me for that reason. There were a few points where I love that Bill Sienkiewicz, where it almost looked like a clean Bill Sienkiewicz, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's something about her art that I'm like, this reminds me of something, and I could not figure out what. I mean, it's not shaded like digital art was, especially in the early issues of this. Like it's very clean cartooning that I like.
But Chris, you're gonna have a whole boatload of negative, I think. Let's get to your final thoughts.
I mean, I don't want to be too mean. I think the
be mean.
I wish that the artist of the last 2 issues had been just the regular artist of the whole book. I think it would have been more in keeping with the story that they're telling. The sort of super realistic art of the first couple issues just wasn't working for me with like the story and tone they were trying to do. But yeah, I just did not think this was very good. I was complaining to Vince. I'm like, reading these in singles, I think this was around the time Marvel individual books went from $4 to $5 an issue. And it's just like, man, like I'm not getting a lot of story. I'm not getting like seeding for like what's coming. There's no like villain that I can see that I guess at the end it was sort of her friend, but then it wasn't. So I'm like, why am I reading next month? Like, what is the hook here?
And I am also just like confused by the time travel as well. Why did they end up in, I guess maybe
it just I think it's trying to like give you like the full breadth of Carol's history. Like that's why you end up at her origin, which I think makes sense because I don't know Carol from fuck all. And I'm like, so I get that. And I tried with like the Ms. Marvel Brian Reed book a few times, and I similarly like bounced off of it. I'm like, I'm just not feeling this. So
yeah,
I mean, continue with this if I was reading it in time.
The best like era of that Ms. Marvel book was when it was like so beholden to like Civil War stuff that she had like a task force with Wonder Man and X-51 Aaron Stack and a couple of other characters, and so it was just Next Wave Aaron Stack. And so it was just like, oh, this is kind of a fun book where they like go on missions, and X-51 is sassy. He's a robot. Carol was just like a total, like, I'm the boss. Like we do what I say, and then she just fights people. Like she had basically no characterization, no love interest. There was a long running subplot that went way, way too long about like an alien parasite in her. But that was like the hook that was at least something, whereas here I'm like, what's the hook here? There's no long running story. And I'm not saying that every Marvel book needs to have like a 12 or 18 issue, like this is going to be the end of our big finale, but it's like you kind of do, because you're only going to last a year or two and then they're going to reboot it. So you kind of do have to think like, okay, what's volume 2 or volume 3's ending going to be? And so you kind of have to start in volume 1, and this book just doesn't do it at all. I don't know. I hate to be just so negative, but I did not like the writing of it. I felt like there's no, I mean, Tracy, I guess, is in the supporting cast, but like Jessica Drew just shows up in issue 6, like, here I am, I'm Carol's friend. And, she literally has no other scenes with her.
I didn't even realize it was Jessica until you told me, because I just like blazed over that, I guess. But it's like, I just thought it was Carol's friend who feeds her cat. But like a classic Marvel book with number 1, it does have Spider-Man in the first issue, and then never again.
Still has Spider-Man. He's not on the cover, but he does show up just for no reason. But yeah, it was frustrating because yeah, I know I'm the grouchy old man. It's like comics were better back when, when people stood in the shadows and like ominously like I've got big plans. Which ironically, the one time Chris Claremont did that when he started writing for Ms. Marvel in the 70s, the book was canceled before he could actually finish any of the plans. But it was like Mystique kills her psychiatrist and is being set up as like, I'm out to get Ms. Marvel. And then we never actually see her like why? Who are you?
Yeah.
And then so they have to explain it later in some other book. But it's like the one time it's like a personal enemy, which I again, the movies, credit to the movie, because I always thought like, oh, there's a perfect villain for Captain Marvel, which is Dr. Minerva is the character's name. She's a Kree lady scientist who wears sort of like a version of Captain Marvel's costume. And I'm like, that's like obviously who should be fighting, Carol, because she is a Kree who's like this evil scientist and should be like, I should have these powers, not you. You're human. I don't like you. And then that's like one of the big subplots in the movie. I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think she ends up being like a chief henchman almost.
Yeah.
Who ended up being the villain? It looked like Annette. Spoiler alert for a 5-year-old movie. Annette Bening. Was she coded as Helen Cobb? Was she actually called Helen?
Annette Bening in Captain Marvel? No, she was
She was like her flashback like trainer lady though that ended up being like the Kree Supreme Intelligence.
Yeah, but that was
she wasn't really the Kree Supreme Intelligence though. That was just the Kree Supreme Intelligence taking that form, right?
Yeah. But like as her,
she did seem like a stand-in for this kind of
Dr.
character.
Wendy Lawson. They even came up with another fucking name. Okay.
But yeah, Jude Law is Jan Rog, the character in this flashback. Yeah. So
okay,
it's like, yeah, he's there.
Yeah.
I also wanted to talk about the guest artist real quick for some of those flashback sequences in 1961. There, Carl Kessel did a page apparently. I think the trade actually credited the issues wrong. It's like, hey, issue 4, there's some guest artists, and 5, but it's 3 and 4. I think it's just the guest artists here.
Yeah, Unlimited has like their page counts like on the little page and everything, like 16 and 20.
Oh wait, did Carl Kessel do this flashback thing? That's what it is. He did that Captain Marvelous Sunday paper strip.
Yeah. No,
there's
somebody else for that one.
Yeah, that doesn't look like
Kessel's like always been like kind of like a journeyman. I feel like. I mean, I know he had like a slight run on Fantastic Four probably in the mid 2000s for a hot minute also.
Well, anyways, I think that's.
I don't know what I expected. I think like I'd always felt like Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel was kind of like the BC tier of Marvel characters, along with like, okay, well they're trying another Tomb of Dracula or Adam Warlock book. Okay, good for them. And read the first issue. I'm like, I don't like this. Okay, cool. Moving on. And I was like expecting like, oh, this is the one that caught on that like inspired them to make the movie. And then I'm like, oh, this is pretty much what I should have expected.
I mean, it's really not what I expected at all, though. I thought it was, and again, maybe that's on me here. I would be more curious to read a second arc and see where it goes. If it's another time travel story, I'm done. And I'm probably not going to read another one here because, again, I kind of know where Carol's at this point. But yeah, just a weird way to introduce such a big kind of relaunch for yourself. That was my main overwhelming kind of opinion of this whole thing. Like, why are we doing this? Yeah, that's all I got here.
Do we want to segue to another? Why are we doing this book?
Yeah.
I think I know why I'm doing this at this point. I think I know why I liked this back in the day. But let's read it first, and then we'll talk about it. Earth X number 3. We have not been enjoying this series so far, but we'll see where it goes. I maybe this one was a little better than the others. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We're going somewhere.
We are going somewhere. The cover has Namor burning forever on one side, and I assume this is Franklin Richards on the other side because he made Namor burn. But then at the end of the book, I'm like, wait a minute, maybe it's this guy who we haven't met yet. Don't put him on the cover if he's a big reveal. Anyways, We start with X-51 and Uatu. They're watching more history again. It seems like every issue is just starting with some history. This time it's the Atlanteans and their city of Atlantis being ruined. And the whole time, X-51 is just saying, hey, you got to distance yourself from people. Also, stop calling your creator dad. He's not your dad. He made you. Cool. We are in California now. Captain America and Red Wing are continuing their search for more evidence of the Red Skull. And they found it because there are Red Skull banners everywhere around this place. And there's a character flying around. And I was like, is that Jack of Hearts? Who is that guy? And he was in the back of the book when they were talking about all that extra stuff. This guy was Texas Jack is what his name is. Not Jack of Hearts. But he does have hearts.
But another Jack.
Like a different
like
Jack.
when we read Captain America, not Union Jack, but another friend of Jack. Is
a lot of Jacks.
The dresses in the Union Jack, but not Union Jack.
They're sneaking around this city kind of wearing hoods to conceal their identities, except Red Wing still has his fucking mask on. Take it off, dumbass.
They'd recognize him.
Yeah.
They'd be like, that's Wyatt Wingfoot. He dated She-Hulk.
All the heroes now, well, not heroes, but like Iron Maiden and that whole crew of Red Skull's team, they're starting to gather somewhere, and all the people are following. And Red Wing and Cap are like, what the heck's going on? And there's no clouds in the sky, but it's raining fish, like fish flying from the sky. It's not raining fish. It's Namor, like smashing up the ocean or something, and fish are flying everywhere. And that Iron Maiden character is telling him that the skull rules the sea. And he's like, I am the sea. And X-51's like, damn, that guy looks more insane than ever. Then the scene shifts to New York City. As X-51 says, the apartment of that guy who used to be Spider-Man. And there's a young lady there. And Peter's like, why did you bring it? Just to rub it in? I guess he's talking about his old costume, maybe? I don't know. And it's his daughter, May Parker. He says, hey, I know you miss Mom. And, so I'm here to visit you. And Peter's like, what is this, like charity? All you're doing is reminding me that my whole family is dead or sleeping with the enemy. And we learn that May is Venom now. And she's like, Dad, I've got it under control. It's fine. And it's not fine. Peter just kind of doesn't want to see her. And so she leaves. She's that red Spider-Man that we saw kind of perched up on the earlier. Looks cool. I like the design.
Yeah, very cool costume. Yeah.
This is just like Fear Itself, where randomly the one Peter Parker being in the middle of it, I'm like, okay, I like this. And then the rest of it, I'm like, I don't care.
I will say, yeah, May Parker is the best thing in this book so far, just from that design and that costume. Now the scene shifts to Central Europe, and X-51 hates how much it keeps shifting.
That was my quote.
Yep. Oh wait, what was it? Say it again. What was it?
This is becoming overwhelming and frustrating.
Yeah, that's it. And now the Inhumans seem to be in Latveria to see Reed Richards, and Reed is like, "Ah, Medusa, it's been so long." And then he continues the thought and goes, "Since I've seen a woman." Wait a minute, Richards. What are you thinking? And there's no follow-up on that, and I'm hoping there will be no follow-up on that. Reed, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry for what happened. Don't blame yourself for what happened to the Fantastic Four. And he's like, I don't. I blame myself for what happened to everyone else. And we kind of learned that Reed had a plan to solve the energy crisis around the world, took it to the UN. They agreed. He was going to make these receiving stations around the world that would receive audio waves that are converted from minerals, and those audio waves can then be reconverted to power. But his beacon exploded and everyone mutated. He doesn't really know what happened. Karnak asks, like, hey, what material did you use? What kind of minerals? And he goes, oh, it's vibranium. And everyone gets a little quiet and shifty.
Vibranium.
And they're like, Reed, we got to take you into confidence here. We got to talk to you. And Reed's like, what's going on? And Medusa's like, well, when we were traveling back through space to come here, we found something. And they found an exploded planet, and there were shiny rocks all around it. But it turns out those shiny rocks were people that were just in a kind of stasis. And they were just surrounded by this metal stuff. And they left them there. And Reed's like, you just left them there? But that's inhuman. LOL. Good stuff, Reed. Good stuff. And Medusa's like, they weren't dead. Also, they're from Earth, and we think they're Eternals who left a year ago. That's too far. Didn't need to know all that. Let's skip it. The vibranium, though, is like they could tell this planet, what was left of it that exploded, had vibranium in it. My goodness. And we jump back to California where Namor and Iron Maiden are fighting while X-51 and Uatu keep talking about this. And X-51's like, vibranium? Is it true? Is the Earth doomed? Are people's struggles for nothing? And Uatu was like, hey, all struggles for nothing, man. There's only death and birth. And X-51 is like, what's the difference if Namor wins here now? What's the difference if Cap wins or the Skull wins? And Uatu's like, yeah, man, now you're getting it. Nice. I like that scene a lot. I think my favorite part in this issue, like in the second issue, I was like, this is getting stupid. I'm over it. Now I'm back to being on board with X-51 and Uatu's dialogue, and Uatu just being like, stop thinking, man. Doesn't matter. Just get over it.
Just watching cool stuff happen. That's all it is. Cool stuff keeps happening.
It's great.
Namor's cool. You see him do stuff. It's cool.
Yeah. Just take a look, man. So Namor gathers up all his enemies in a big old fishnet. He lands on the ground, and then he kneels, and he sees the crowd moving to reveal, and Captain America sees this as well, and it's a child? Not really. He seems like a teenager, but it's the Red Skull.
He looks like Prez.
I mean,
he does look like Prez.
Teen president.
Yes, friend of the show, Prez.
We would never elect a Nazi.
No. Not even if he's the youngest presidential candidate ever.
We don't really know who this guy is though yet. Like, is it the original Red Skull? Is it a different guy?
He's the guy on the cover.
Yeah, I think he is the guy on the cover.
Yeah, way to blow that thing.
We'll find out who he is. He's not. Well, we'll see.
He's not Prez. He's not transferred from any other
He's
universe.
not Prez. He's not just Red Skull in a new body, like for the millionth time. It's a weirder reference.
I'm not gonna lie though, Kia. Now that I'm approaching 40, anybody I see under 25 successful, I'm like, they're just a kid.
Right. Just a kid.
They're babies.
You see Spider-Man with his mask pulled off. He's just a kid.
Just a child.
Tobey Maguire, he's only 30-some years old.
When I watched that 20 years ago, I'm like, that's a man. What are you talking about? But
I did read a little bit of the after text. That's the end of the issue here, the reveal of the Red Skull. But we, of course, get that same after text with X-51 and Uatu just talking about everyone else they've seen in this issue. And some people we didn't see where there's like, hey, what happened to this guy? Go check some archives, see what's going on there.
Yeah, we confirmed it was X-Force we saw last issue that we weren't sure who.
Yes, you're right. They should have put that in the last text. But I like this line from Uatu to X-51 saying, do not lean on your impressions for understanding. Your instincts and emotions are potholes in the path of your destiny. Okay. Thanks, Uatu. Appreciate that.
Why does he know what a pothole is?
He's watched the Earth.
He's watched everything. He's watched cities not repair potholes and less fortunate
he
parts of the town.
He doesn't give a shit about humans. He gives a shit about the Earth, and potholes are part of the Earth, man.
All I'm saying is
the absence of Earth, actually.
This guy spends a lot of time watching Namor. Namor doesn't spend that much time dealing with potholes.
This is true. But that's it. Anything else in this? Did y'all read this?
No, because I figured no, because you gave me a cliffhanger. I'm fucking done. I'm done with the issue when that happens. If they had put it in the middle, I might have read it. If they put it at the beginning, I might read it. If it was like a page interspersed, like let's cut back to them talking and shit with like not black and white art, I might read it. But it's like the Voyage of the Dawn, not the Voyage of the Dawn. What the fucking pirate ship is in Watchmen? I'm not reading.
This is like when an episode of The Walking Dead ends and they have like The Watching Dead afterwards, where celebrities talk about it. This is exactly what it is.
I'm done. I'm fucking done.
Well,
maybe if they published an article like in between, if it was like something else, maybe I'd read it.
No, that'd be worse. I wouldn't read an article and that.
No. I have to say, this has been the best issue so far.
It has 100%. Stuff happened. There was a cool design for May Parker.
It's got Spider-Man in it. I'm on board.
Yeah. I like the foreshadowing of like Karnak's like, I can tell you what happened, and Reed's like, what happened? Like, oh, we'll tell you later.
There's so many fucking times in this book where they're like, "What happened about this? Can you tell me?" No.
No.
How about I explain it? Don't worry about it. Okay. And it happens with Uatu and Machine Man, and it happens, and that with Reed is like, I've got this. No, Can you explain this to me? No, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I did like Karnak. I don't usually like the Inhumans, but that was good. Like, he's like, I used some mineral. What'd you use? Vibranium. Oh fuck. Okay. Well, we got to now. That was good.
That was good. It's a good poker face there from the man who can see the flaws in anything.
Yep. But next time, of course, we will continue with Earth X number 4. We'll see where this continues from here. Oh, I was gonna say, I think the reason I like this book is maybe it was so early on in my getting into Marvel history that I liked seeing all the history at the beginning, and I was like, oh, I'm learning about everything as I go through, and I'm getting this other story, which I didn't realize I was barely getting the story there. I don't know. Maybe that's why I like it.
And I'm at the point where like, Namor doesn't matter. Inhumans
doesn't matter.
Don't retain that facts. It doesn't affect anything.
How dare you say this about Namor? He's the coolest of them all.
He was the best part of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I 100%.
Yeah. See?
He was. Although I think I told y'all like off air, like his name he pronounces it Namor, which is fucking. No. He said for no amor, no love. No. His name is Namor. Shut the fuck up.
He's Spanish?
Yeah, he's like Aztec, right? Mayan?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
the conquistadors destroyed his family.
I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was Atlantean.
Atlantis was a thing that was conquered by conquistadors. And so he's like, don't trust the white people. They're just going to colonize you. And he tells that to Black Panther's family, and they're like, that is legit.
Well, okay.
Normally correct.
Namor, not Namor, was the best part of that movie.
Namor, I can't get over
I didn't
that.
like
I'm
it.
not
I didn't
watching
like
that.
it. I think I texted Chris immediately, like, this is bullshit. I don't like this at all.
Yeah, speaking of only reading names, I always pronounced it submariner because I had never heard the term mariner, and I was like, I know what a submarine is.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
He's not on King Griffey Jr.'s team. What are you talking about?
A submariner. All right. Anyways, next time, Earth X number 4. And you know what? We were so taken by May Parker as this Venom spider person. We're going to read some Spider-Girl starring May Parker. This is the first time we are jumping into the MC2.
Hell yeah.
It is like a new universe before the Ultimate Universe that Marvel decided to create in 1998 that was going to be kind of spearheaded by this Spider-Girl book. Which also originally, so the concept of May Parker as Spider-Girl began way back in What If number 105? What year was that? I didn't write that down.
I think it was earlier in 98. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or late 97, one of the two.
I didn't realize it was that recent because then Spider-Girl 0 came out to begin this new relaunch, and it was just a reprint of What If number 105. And then, so we're going to read the first arc.
Clone Saga, which we covered like on our 6th episode of the show, the fake Clone Saga. Peter and Mary Jane were going to have a baby, and then the baby I think they thought it was stillborn, but I think Norman Osborn may have stolen the baby.
Yes, the baby was kidnapped, and then there's a subplot where they're like, they have May. May is alive, and then Peter opens like a shipping container or whatever, and Aunt May is there, and you're like, what?
Oh, is that how Aunt May comes back from the dead?
Yes.
What the fuck?
Cool.
Okay, but either way, they had a baby that they never ever like readdress, except for like the what if is like, what if the baby really happened? And then the book is like when she's like 15, so it's like teenage Spider-Man dealing with shit. It's funny that like there's 2099, Ultimate Universe, and MC2 all in like a 5-year span for Marvel. They really were trying to.
Well, 2099 was a few years earlier. That was like what, 1991. So
yeah,
it was basically over by this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it does feel like they kept trying new universes before kind of really settling on the Ultimate Universe, which lasted a while longer before they got rid of that.
But we've been talking about doing Spider-Girl for years now. I'm excited. And this was the impetus. I'm like, you know what? I really like that Mayday scene. and I'm ready to let's dig in.
So this is by Tom DeFalco with art by Ron Frenz. And that first arc contains that number 0 issue, which is the same thing as What If number 105, and then goes number 1 through 5 as well. So 6 issues total that we're reading next time. There is also a Wizard number 1/2 issue, which we are not reading. And if you go to Marvel Unlimited and go to Spider-Girl number 0, it gives you the Wizard half issue over there. So you got to go to What If number 105 to read the right issue.
You can find it on. You just have to maybe dig around.
Maybe be careful.
It's definitely Unlimited. Definitely has. You just type in What If 105 and then press like the issues sub tab or whatever. It's there.
Just for the love of God, just don't read a Wizard 1/2 issue ever. I refuse to read any.
I'm gonna make us do that for April Fools. We're just gonna find all the Wizard 1/2s.
There's probably too many. We're not doing Earth X number 1/2. There's been a bunch of 1/2s here, and every one of them that I've read from what I remember back in the 90s and early 2000s, worthless. Never gonna read one again. Can't make me. But yeah, next time Spider-Girl and Earth X number 4. What else is going on, Chris? What is the Your Stupid Minds podcast that watches bad movies up to?
Your Stupid Minds just had an episode come out last week. We should have another episode coming out at the end of the week that this drops. But we just did The Exorcist 2: The Heretic, the sequel to the original film that Linda Blair and her nurse are, I believe, the only returning characters. So the mom gone. I guess, well, the priest who's dead does have a cameo appearance. But a very bizarre sequel where she is mostly just cured. But Richard Burton goes around and tries to figure out what happened in that first movie and ends up making things worse for everyone.
Interesting. Because Exorcist 3 is supposed to be sneaky good. But Exorcist 2 is supposed to be bad.
Yeah, I like Exorcist 3. I didn't hate Exorcist 2, but it just doesn't really work. It wants to be its own thing, but then it's also like you can tell the studio's like, no, like Exorcist 1 made so much money. Like we have to keep this connected to that first movie.
Yeah. Very good. Vince, what are you up to?
Nothing. Just celebrated Halloween last night not for us, but in the future of this, after this comes out, Happy Halloween is done. And yeah, nothing else going on though.
I see. Last night in the present, when we're recording this last night, it was a big Halloween party happening outside my window. They were very loud, but I didn't actually sleep the night before. And I really needed sleep. So I was like, oh my God, this party out here is going to keep me from sleeping. Turns out I was tired enough to get 12 hours of sleep. It was okay. Great. Everything is fine. Listeners, thank you for worrying about me.
I was worried. Oh, I'm not a listener, but I can sleep.
You're not you're listening to me while we're talking, I assume. So you're technically a listener of some sort. Other than that, anything of actual interest to talk about?
No.
That's it. Nothing. I think we're done here. Vince, thank you so much. I love you.
Love you too, buddy.
Chris, thank you so much. I love you.
Hey, what's that plane? What? Uh-oh.
Well, he's stuck in a time loop.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll buy him a plane. We'll buy that plane when it shows up, and we'll.
I hope so. Do we have to call him Captain Chris when he comes back?
Oh, hey guys, I'm back. How long was I gone?
It was like a weekend.
Yeah. We're covering Earth X 12 next week.
Yeah, you missed it.
And what else are we covering? We're covering Prez 2023. It's a new book. Yeah.
Well, hold on. Now it seems like Vince and I went through a time loop because now this doesn't make any sense. This canon is broken. It's time to end the show. Listener, thank you so much. We love you as well. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.